At Jefferson High, three white basketball stars think they found an easy target when Jamal Price, a quiet black teenager, shows up in their gym. They shove him, mock him with racist slurs, and laugh as the whole school watches. But what they don't know is Jamal isn't just another student. He's a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. When these bullies plot to frame him during the biggest game of the year, a shocking showdown turns their plan inside out, exposing dark secrets nobody saw coming. Can Jamal clear his name and bring justice? Or will the bullies' powerful families bury the truth forever? Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The morning sun cast long shadows across Jefferson High's red brick facade as Jamal Price stepped out of his mother's worn Honda Civic. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of freshly cut grass and new beginnings. Jamal adjusted his plain navy backpack, his movements deliberate and controlled, the result of years of martial arts training. Simone Price reached across the center console, her nurse's scrubs already wrinkle-free and ready for her shift. "Remember what we talked about, baby? New school, new opportunities." Jamal nodded, his expression serene despite the butterflies in his stomach. "Yes, ma'am. Head up, stay focused, make you proud. That's my boy." Simone's smile carried equal parts love and worry. "And remember, keep my cool, no matter what," Jamal finished, having heard these words countless times before. "I got this, Mom." The main hallway of Jefferson High stretched before him like a river of white faces. Jamal moved with quiet confidence, his shoulders straight, but relaxed. The crowd parted slightly as he passed, conversations dropping to whispers. He'd seen this before, the subtle shifting away, the quick glances that never quite met his eyes. At the front office, Mrs. Henderson, a thin woman with graying hair, barely looked up from her computer as she handed him his schedule. "Welcome to Jefferson High," she said flatly, already turning back to her screen. Jamal's first three classes passed in a blur of introductions and sideways looks. In chemistry, he sat next to a friendly redhead named Sarah, who actually smiled at him. But when she waved him over to her lunch table later, her friends suddenly found their table full. The cafeteria was a maze of unspoken rules and invisible boundaries. Jamal could read them clearly. The football players near the windows, the band kids by the wall, and commanding the center of the room, the basketball team. They sprawled across their tables like kings holding court. Jamal found an empty table near the corner, unpacking the lunch his mother had carefully prepared that morning. The basketball players were easy to spot, their Letterman jackets marking them like peacock feathers in a barnyard. The tallest one, who carried himself like he owned the room, caught Jamal's eye and smirked. "Yo, Trent," one of the players said loudly enough to carry, "check out the new kids' Walmart special kicks." Trent Walker leaned back in his chair, his designer shoes propped on an empty seat. "Probably couldn't afford anything else, Kyle. You know how it is." His voice dripped with mock sympathy. The third player, stocky and aggressive-looking, didn't bother to lower his voice when he added, "Better keep our wallets close." The racial slur that followed was whispered, but the snickers from their table made the meaning clear. Jamal kept his breathing steady, just like he did before a tournament match. He could feel the familiar heat of anger rising in his chest, but his hands remained still as he carefully unwrapped his sandwich. His mother's words echoed in his mind. "They can only take your dignity if you give it to them." The basketball players' table erupted in muffled laughter again. Jamal caught fragments of their conversation. "Doesn't belong. Probably can't even read." And worse things, much worse things, spoken just loud enough for him to hear, but too quiet for teachers to notice. He took another bite of his sandwich, his movements measured and calm. Years of training had taught him that true strength wasn't about reacting to every provocation. Still, he couldn't help but notice how the other students seemed to accept this behavior as normal. their eyes carefully avoiding the scene playing out before them. The stocky player, Jamal had heard someone call him Brent, made a show of moving his chair further away when Jamal stood up to throw away his trash. "Don't want any trouble," Brent said loudly, nudging Kyle with his elbow. Kyle Sanders, lean and sharp-featured, replied with exaggerated concern, "Better safe than sorry, man. You never know with... you know." The pause was deliberate, the implication clear. Jamal walked to the trash can, his steps silent and controlled, just as they were on the martial arts mat. He could feel Trent Walker's eyes following him, calculating and cold. The basketball captain's confident smirk suggested he was used to people backing down, used to his words and actions having no consequences. As Jamal returned to his seat, he caught a glimpse of his reflection in the cafeteria window. His mother's face looked back at him, the same quiet determination, the same dignity in the face of ignorance. He sat down, alone but undefeated, and opened his history textbook. The whispers and slurs continued from the basketball players' table, but Jamal remained focused on his reading, his posture perfect, his face a mask of calm that revealed nothing of the storm brewing beneath. After lunch, Jamal made his way to the athletic office, his footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. A sign on the bulletin board caught his eye. "Open Gym. All students welcome." He remembered his mother's encouragement to get involved, to try making connections despite everything. The athletic director, Mr. Peterson, barely glanced up from his desk when Jamal entered. "Sign-up sheets right there," he said, pointing to a clipboard. "Open Gym starts in 10 minutes. Jamal wrote his name in neat letters at the bottom of the nearly full page. Most of the other names were familiar, the same basketball players from lunch. The gym smelled of floor wax and old sweat. Jamal changed quickly in the locker room, keeping to himself as other students filtered in. He wore simple basketball shorts and a plain white t-shirt that contrasted sharply with the branded gear the team players sported. Coach Wilson, a middle-aged man with a whistle permanently hanging around his neck, gathered everyone at center court. "All right, let's mix it up today. New kid," he pointed at Jamal. "You're with Trent's team. Show us what you've got." Trent Walker's face twisted into something between a smirk and a scowl. "Sure thing, coach. We'll take real good care of him." The game started normally enough. Jamal stayed alert, moving with the fluid grace that came from years of martial arts training. He was open several times, but his teammates ignored him, even when he had clear shots. "My bad," Kyle called out after deliberately throwing the ball way over Jamal's head. "Guess you're not as tall as I thought." Snickers rippled through the gym. The next play, Brent set a screen that was more like a football tackle, sending Jamal stumbling. "Oops," Brent said, not even trying to sound sincere. "Didn't see you there." Coach Wilson frowned but said nothing, his whistle staying silent despite the obvious fouls. A few students on the bleachers shifted uncomfortably, but their eyes stayed fixed on their phones or the floor. Jamal kept his breathing steady, just as Coach Morales had taught him in the dojo. He recovered his balance quickly each time, his face revealing nothing. This seemed to irritate Trent even more. "You think you're better than us?" Trent hissed as they lined up for a free throw. "Know your place?" The next play turned ugly fast. Jamal had managed to get the ball, a rare occurrence, and was driving toward the basket. Kyle appeared on his left, trying to swipe the ball away with more force than necessary. Brent closed in on the right, his elbow conveniently at chest height. But it was Trent who struck the final blow. As Jamal went up for the layup, Trent slammed into him from behind. The impact sent Jamal flying, his body hitting the hardwood with a sickening thud that echoed through the suddenly silent gym. "Man down!" Kyle called out with fake concern, while Brent struggled to contain his laughter. Jamal felt the familiar rush of adrenaline, his muscles tensing instinctively into a defensive position. But he remembered his mother's words, remembered Coach Morales' lessons about choosing your battles. With deliberate calm, he pushed himself up from the floor. "You okay there, buddy?" Trent's voice dripped with mock concern. "Maybe this game's a little too rough for you." Jamal stood straight, his movements controlled and dignified. He didn't brush off his clothes, didn't rub his shoulder where it had hit the floor hardest. He simply took his position back on the court, his face a mask of serenity that seemed to infuriate Trent even more. The other students in the gym watched the scene unfold with a mixture of discomfort and relief that they weren't the targets. A few looked like they wanted to say something, but the basketball team's status as untouchable kings of Jefferson High kept them silent. Coach Wilson finally blew his whistle, but only to call next possession. "Let's keep it clean out there," he said weakly, his authority undermined by his unwillingness to confront the real problem. Jamal stayed in position, his stance perfect, his breathing controlled. The impact of the fall still radiated through his body, but years of taking falls on the martial arts mat had taught him how to absorb shock. He could handle the physical pain. It was the weight of the silent stares, the unspoken acceptance of cruelty that pressed heavier on his shoulders. The game continued, but the message had been sent. This was their territory, their kingdom, and they had made it clear that Jamal wasn't welcome. Yet he remained on the court, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing him quit. His defiance was quiet but unmistakable. He would not be broken by their attempts to humiliate him. Kyle and Brent exchanged satisfied smirks with Trent, clearly pleased with their handiwork. They had marked their territory, established their dominance, all under the thin veneer of just playing ball. The system had worked exactly as they'd intended, with no consequences for their actions. But they hadn't counted on Jamal's inner strength, couldn't see the years of discipline that kept his fists unclenched and his face composed. They mistook his restraint for weakness, never suspecting that their new target was far more powerful than they could imagine. The final bell rang, and students poured into Jefferson High's hallways. Jamal walked quickly to his locker, hoping to grab his things and leave before running into any more trouble. His shoulders still ached from the fall, but he kept his posture straight and his face neutral. Tyler Matthews, one of Trent's friends from the basketball team, leaned against a nearby locker, phone in hand. His thumbs moved rapidly across the screen as he edited the video he'd taken during open gym. "Yo, check this out," Tyler called to a group passing by. "New kid got put in his place today." The video showed Jamal's hard fall in vivid detail. Tyler had added text overlays in bold white letters. "When you forget where you belong," and "Welcome to Jefferson, boy." The racial undertones were impossible to miss. Students gathered around Tyler's phone, some laughing, others looking uncomfortable, but saying nothing. Within minutes, the video was uploaded to multiple social media platforms, spreading through the school's digital grapevine like wildfire. Jamal kept his eyes forward as he walked to the parking lot where his mother would pick him up. But he could hear the whispers, see the phones pointed his way. Some students even replayed the video loudly as he passed, making sure he could hear the sound of his own body hitting the floor. "Hey, movie star!" Trent's voice boomed down the hallway. He stood with Kyle and Brent, all three watching the video on Kyle's phone. "You should thank Tyler. He really captured your best angle." Jamal's jaw tightened, but he kept walking. The discipline of the dojo had taught him to control his emotions, to choose his moments. But each step felt heavier than the last. When he reached the parking lot, Simone was already waiting in their old Honda Civic. One look at her son's face told her something was wrong. "Baby, what happened?" she asked as Jamal slid into the passenger seat. Before he could answer, both their phones buzzed. The video had made its way to local parent and community groups. Simone's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter as she watched, her expression shifting from concern to anger to deep sadness. The drive home was quiet, both mother and son processing what they'd seen. The video's comments section was filling up with laughing emojis, and worse, racial slurs barely disguised as jokes, comments about knowing your place, and suggestions that Jamal should transfer schools. Inside their small apartment, Simone pulled Jamal into a tight hug. She didn't say anything at first. She didn't have to. They both understood the weight of what was happening, how quickly a single incident could spiral into something much darker. "I'm okay, Mom," Jamal said softly, trying to reassure her. But his voice carried a weariness that broke Simone's heart. They sat together on their worn couch, the phones on the coffee table still buzzing with notifications as the video continued to spread. Simone held her son close, just as she had when he was small, and the world's cruelties seemed simpler to protect him from. The afternoon light filtered through their thin curtains, casting long shadows across the living room. Outside, life went on as normal. Cars passing, neighbors chatting, kids playing. But inside their apartment, mother and son sat in heavy silence, both knowing this was just the beginning. Simone's phone lit up with a message from the hospital where she worked as a nurse. Someone had shared the video in the staff group chat. Her colleagues were starting to ask questions, and she could already imagine the awkward conversations that would follow. Jamal's phone kept buzzing too, messages from classmates he hadn't even met yet, some expressing sympathy, but most just sharing the video with more cruel comments. He turned the phone face down, unable to watch himself fall again and again. The silence between them was filled with unspoken understanding. They'd moved to Jefferson for a fresh start, hoping this predominantly white town would offer better opportunities. Now, barely one day in, they were facing the same old struggles in a new setting. Simone hugged Jamal tighter, her nurse's hands gentle against the shoulder that had hit the floor. She didn't need to ask if he was hurt. She knew her son would never show that kind of weakness to his tormentors. But here, in the safety of their home, she could feel the tension in his muscles, the careful way he held himself. The video played one more time from someone's shared link, the sound of laughter and the thud of Jamal's fall echoing in their small living room. Simone reached over and muted both their phones, letting the silence wrap around them like a protective blanket. In that moment, no words were needed, just a mother's embrace, a son's quiet strength, and the shared knowledge that tomorrow would bring new challenges. But for now, they had each other, and sometimes that had to be enough. The locker room was nearly empty as Jamal changed after practice. Most of the team had already left, their voices fading down the hallway. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows between the rows of metal lockers. Jamal winced as he pulled his shirt over his head. The bruises from Monday's accident had darkened to a deep purple. He'd been careful during practice, staying away from Trent and his friends, focusing on basic drills with the second-string players. The heavy door creaked open. Footsteps echoed off the tiled walls, not the quick steps of someone grabbing forgotten gear, but the deliberate pace of people who wanted to be heard. "Well, look who's still here," Trent's voice carried through the locker room. "Our favorite new teammate." Jamal turned slowly. Trent stood at the end of the row, Kyle and Brent flanking him like guards. They'd positioned themselves to block the main exit. Behind a far row of lockers, Marcus Bell quietly pulled out his phone. He'd stayed late to work on an article for the school paper, and now found himself an accidental witness. His hands trembled slightly as he started recording. "That video's got like 1,000 shares now," Kyle said, smirking. "You're famous, Price." "Yeah, real famous," Brent added, cracking his knuckles. "But we think you need a sequel. Something to really teach you your place." Jamal remained silent, his expression calm despite his racing heart. Years of training under Sensei Chen had taught him to read situations, to recognize when conflict was unavoidable. This was one of those moments. Nothing to say? Trent stepped closer, his height advantage more pronounced in the confined space. You've been real quiet since Monday. Maybe we need to help you find your voice. I don't want trouble, Jamal said evenly, shifting his weight slightly. Just let me leave. Oh, now he speaks, Kyle laughed. But see, that's not how this works. You don't get to decide when you leave. Brent moved to Jamal's left while Kyle circled to the right, creating a triangle of tension in the narrow space between the lockers. We run this school, Trent said, his voice dropping lower. And you need to learn that before… Trent lunged forward, aiming to shove Jamal into the lockers. But Jamal wasn't there anymore. With fluid movement born from countless hours of practice, he sidestepped the attack. Trent's momentum carried him forward into empty air. Before Trent could recover, Jamal grabbed his extended arm and hip, using Trent's own force to throw him. The basketball captain hit the floor hard, sliding into the base of the lockers with a metallic crash. Kyle and Brent rushed in together. Jamal dropped his center of gravity, years of muscle memory taking over. He caught Kyle's wild punch and redirected it, sending him stumbling into Brent. As they collided, Jamal swept Brent's legs, taking them both down. Marcus's phone captured everything. The swift, controlled movements, the look of shock on the bullies' faces as their target suddenly transformed into something else entirely. Trent scrambled to his feet, rage replacing his usual arrogance. He charged like a bull, but Jamal moved like water. A quick hip throw sent Trent flying again, this time landing hard on his back. Brent managed to grab Jamal from behind, trying to use his superior size. But Jamal simply shifted his weight, executing a perfect shoulder throw. Brent landed beside Trent, the wind knocked out of him. Kyle backed away, his earlier bravado evaporating. What the hell are you? Jamal stood in a ready stance, his breathing steady. The transformation was remarkable. Gone was the quiet, reserved student. In his place stood a trained martial artist, capable of handling multiple attackers without throwing a single punch. Trent tried to stand again but fell back, groaning. Brent lay flat on his back, gasping for air. The polished floor that had once displayed their dominance now reflected their humiliation. I'm someone who just wanted to be left alone, Jamal said quietly. His voice carried through the locker room, steady and clear. Remember that next time. Marcus kept filming as the scene settled. The contrast was striking. 3 of Jefferson High's biggest bullies sprawled on the floor, while their intended victim stood calmly among them, unharmed and unruffled. The locker room fell silent except for the groans of the fallen bullies and the steady hum of the fluorescent lights. The power dynamic that had defined Jefferson High for so long had shifted in less than a minute, captured forever in digital memory. Marcus waited near the bus stop, nervously checking his phone every few seconds. The evening sun cast long shadows across the empty street. When he spotted Jamal walking home, he jogged over, looking around to make sure they were alone. "Hey, Jamal! Wait up!" Marcus called out, his voice barely above a whisper. Jamal turned, tension visible in his shoulders until he recognized Marcus. "You're Marcus, right? From English class?" "Yeah." Marcus glanced around again before pulling out his phone. "I was in the locker room today. I saw what happened. Actually, I recorded it." Jamal's expression tightened. "You recorded it?" "Look," Marcus said, holding up the phone. "I think people need to see this, see who they really are." They huddled together on a nearby bench as Marcus played the video. The footage was steady, clearly showing Trent and his friends cornering Jamal, then being systematically taken down without a single punch thrown. "The way you moved…" Marcus shook his head in amazement. "That was incredible." "Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu," Jamal explained quietly. "Been training since I was 6. We should share this, Marcus said. Show everyone what really happened. Those guys have been bullying people for years, but nobody ever stands up to them. Jamal stared at the phone, conflict clear on his face. I don't know. It might make things worse. Worse than that first video they shared of you? That's different. They're already angry about what happened. If this gets out… Jamal trailed off, remembering his mother's warnings about being careful, about how quickly situations could escalate. At least keep a copy, Marcus insisted, sending the video to Jamal's phone. Just in case. When Jamal got home, he found his mother in the kitchen, still in her nurse's scrubs from her shift. The smell of her famous chicken stew filled the apartment. You're late, Simone said, stirring the pot. Everything okay? Jamal set his bag down, weighing his words carefully. Something happened at practice. Simone turned, reading his expression with a mother's practiced eye. Tell me. Jamal pulled out his phone and played the video. Simone watched in silence, her stirring spoon forgotten in her hand. They cornered you? Her voice was tight with controlled anger. They tried to, Jamal said. I handled it like Sensei Chen taught me. No strikes, just control. Simone sat down at the kitchen table, motioning for Jamal to join her. Baby, I'm proud you defended yourself without hurting them. But this is serious. We should show this to the principal. And then what? Jamal asked. Their parents have money, influence. The principal already ignored that first video they posted. This is different. This shows they attacked you. It also shows me throwing them around the locker room, Jamal pointed out. They'll twist it, say I started it. Make me look like the aggressive one. Simone reached across the table, taking his hand. You can't just let them get away with this. I'm not, Jamal said firmly. They know now. They know I can defend myself. Sometimes that's not enough. Simone squeezed his hand. Sometimes you have to speak up. Make sure people in authority know what's happening. Can I think about it? Jamal asked. Just give me a day to figure out the right move. Simone nodded slowly. One day, but if they try anything else, we're going straight to the principal. Promise me. I promise, Mom. Across town, in the empty parking lot of a closed convenience store, Trent paced between Kyle and Brent's cars. The security light cast harsh shadows across his face, which was twisted with rage. He made us look like idiots, Trent spat. Some nobody transfer student. He's got training, Brent said, rubbing his shoulder where he'd landed. Like serious training. I don't care if he's got Olympic training, Trent snapped. Nobody does that to us. Nobody. Kyle leaned against his car, arms crossed. What are we going to do? We can't jump him again. He'll just do that. Whatever that was. No. Trent's voice turned calculating. We need to be smarter. We need to destroy him where he can't use his little karate moves. How? Brent asked. The championship game, Trent said, a cruel smile forming. The whole school will be there. Parents, teachers, everyone. What are you thinking? Kyle straightened up, interested. We push him, not physically. We make him snap. Get in his head, make him lose control. But this time, we make sure everyone sees him as the aggressor. The violent black kid attacking the team captain. Brent nodded slowly. Classic. Exactly. Trent's smile widened. We'll need the whole team in on it. Push him all game, little things the refs won't catch. Then at halftime, we make our move, Kyle finished. And this time, Trent's voice hardened, we make sure everyone sees exactly what we want them to see. The three stood in the harsh security light, plotting their revenge, while across town Jamal lay in bed, the weight of Marcus's video heavy on his phone and his conscience. The next morning, whispers followed Jamal through Jefferson High's hallways. Students who had started to smile at him now turned away, huddling in small groups that fell silent as he passed. In first period English, he noticed how his usual seat near the front was now surrounded by empty desks. Marcus caught his eye from across the room, giving him a grim nod. "I heard he just snapped," a girl whispered loudly behind him. "Like, totally lost it on Trent and the guys." "My cousin's on the team," another voice added. "Said he went crazy in the locker room, started throwing people around." Jamal kept his eyes forward, his mother's words echoing in his head. "Stay calm. Stay focused." But his hands clenched under the desk as the whispers continued. Between classes, Trent and his friends worked the crowds like politicians, their voices carrying just enough for Jamal to hear. "Yeah, we were just changing after practice," Trent told a group of cheerleaders, touching the shoulder he'd landed on. "Out of nowhere, he just attacked us. 3 guys at once. Probably thought we were disrespecting him or something," Kyle added, shaking his head. "You know how they get." The "they" hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Jamal walked past, jaw tight, as Trent raised his voice. "Someone needs to do something before he really hurts somebody." By lunchtime, the cafeteria had become a minefield. Jamal sat alone, the nearest tables conspicuously empty. Even the lunch ladies served him with wary glances, as if he might vault over the counter at any moment. In chemistry, his lab partner asked to switch groups. "Nothing personal," she mumbled, not meeting his eyes. "Just, you know." The teachers were subtler, but no less clear in their changed behavior. His math teacher, who had praised his work just days ago, now barely acknowledged his raised hand. In history, when Trent knocked Jamal's books off his desk, accidentally, the teacher simply looked away. After school, Simone made her third call to the principal's office. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Price," the secretary said, "but Mr. Thompson is in meetings all day." "Again? He's been in meetings for 2 days straight?" Simone's voice was steel-wrapped silk. "My son is being harassed, and the principal can't spare 10 minutes? "I'll add you to his call list," the secretary offered weakly. "You do that," Simone replied. "And please remind Mr. Thompson that documentation of all my attempts to reach him has been noted." The next morning brought more of the same, but worse. Someone had scratched "thug" into Jamal's locker door. In gym class, no one would pick him for teams, forcing the coach to assign him, and then benching him the entire period. During passing period, Jamal heard Brent loudly telling someone, "My dad's a lawyer. He says with Jamal's violent behavior, the school could be liable if they don't do something." Like, what if he attacks a teacher next? The words followed Jamal home, where he found his mother waiting in the living room. One look at her face told him she'd heard everything. "Baby, come sit." She patted the couch beside her. Jamal dropped his backpack and sank down, the weight of the past 2 days finally crushing his carefully maintained composure. "They're turning everyone against me, Mom. Even the teachers believe them." Simone wrapped an arm around his shoulders, pulling him close like she used to when he was small. "I know, baby. I know. But we have the video." Jamal's voice cracked. "We could show them what really happened." "And then what?" Simone's voice was gentle, but firm. "They'll say you were the aggressor, that you used martial arts training against unarmed students. They'll twist it, baby. They always do. So they just get away with it?" Jamal pulled away, anger and frustration finally breaking through. "That's not fair." "No, it's not fair." Simone turned to face him fully. "But this is something you need to understand. The system, it's not built to protect boys who look like you, not from boys who look like them. But, listen to me." Simone's eyes were intense. "I've seen this play out too many times. Black boy defends himself against white attackers, and suddenly he's the violent one, the dangerous one, the one who needs to be controlled." Jamal slumped back against the couch. "So what am I supposed to do?" "We document everything," Simone said firmly. Every incident, every call to the principal, every witness. We build our case carefully, and we stay calm, even when they're trying their hardest to make you react. Like Sensei Chen says, Jamal murmured, the strongest defense is a clear mind. Exactly. Simone squeezed his shoulder. They want you to lose control, to prove their lies true. Don't give them that satisfaction. I won't, Jamal promised, though his voice wavered. But Mom, it's hard. Being alone like this. Simone pulled him close again, and this time Jamal didn't resist. You're not alone, baby. Never alone. We'll figure this out together. They sat in silence as the evening shadows lengthened, mother and son united against a familiar storm, while across town, Trent and his friends continued spinning their web of lies, confident in the protection their privilege provided. Wednesday morning brought the same hostile atmosphere to Jefferson High's hallways. Jamal walked with his head high, but his shoulders tense, bracing for another day of whispers and sideways looks. As he approached his locker, he noticed Marcus lingering nearby, fidgeting with his phone. Before Jamal could say hello, a girl with dark hair and fierce eyes marched up to him. Hey, she said directly. I'm Lily Torres. You're Jamal, right? Jamal nodded, surprised by her forthright approach. I saw what happened in gym yesterday, Lily continued, her voice carrying clearly. That whole thing with nobody picking you for teams? Total garbage. Coach Stevens should be ashamed. Marcus stepped closer, speaking softly. Lily's right. What they're doing, it's not okay. A quiet girl with glasses, Rebecca, from his English class, appeared beside them. I know you didn't attack anyone, she said, barely above a whisper. Trent and his friends are lying. They've done this before. Jamal felt something loosen in his chest, a knot of isolation he hadn't even realized was there. Thanks, he managed. That means a lot. Those guys think they own this school, Lily said, disgust clear in her voice. Just because their parents donate money or whatever. It's ridiculous. The warning bell rang, and Rebecca hurried off to class with a small wave. But Lily wasn't finished. Look, we're meeting at Mel's diner after school. You should come. She glanced at Marcus. Show him that video you took. Jamal's eyes widened. You told her. Just Lily, Marcus assured him quickly. She's good at standing up to people. I thought maybe she could help. Lily snorted. More like I'm good at not taking crap from entitled jerks. My family didn't leave one country just to let rich bullies push us around in another one. The second bell rang, and they had to split up for class. But throughout the day, Jamal noticed small changes. Lily deliberately sat next to him in history, shooting daggers at anyone who whispered. Marcus shared his lab table in chemistry when Jamal's original partner had abandoned him. Even Rebecca, though still quiet, gave him a tiny smile when their eyes met in English. After school, Jamal texted his mom that he'd be late, then walked the few blocks to Mel's diner. The small restaurant was a throwback to the 1950s, with red vinyl booths and chrome fixtures. Lily waved him over to a corner booth where she and Marcus were already sharing a plate of fries. Okay, Lily said as soon as he sat down. Marcus showed me the video. Those jerks attacked you, and you defended yourself. Why aren't we showing everyone? It's not that simple, Jamal replied, thinking of his mother's words. They'll twist it around, make me look like the aggressor. He's right, Marcus added, pushing his glasses up. They're already spreading rumors about him being violent. The video shows him using martial arts. Which he only did because they attacked him, Lily interrupted. But that's not how they'll spin it, Jamal explained. 3 white basketball players versus 1 black kid using martial arts? They'll say I was the dangerous one. Lily's face darkened with understanding. Because you're black. Yeah. Jamal stared at the table. My mom's been trying to meet with the principal for days. He won't even take her calls. That's messed up, Lily declared, stealing one of Marcus's fries. So what's the plan? Plan? Yeah, the plan. Because we're not letting them get away with this. Lily looked between them. Marcus, you've got your camera phone. I've got a big mouth and zero fear of Trent's little gang. And Jamal, you've got skills they didn't expect. I don't want to fight, Jamal said quickly. No, but you can defend yourself, Marcus pointed out. And next time, we'll make sure to get everything on video. The lead-up, the provocation, all of it. Multiple angles, Lily added. I can film too. And Rebecca? She's quiet, but she sees everything. She can back up what really happens. A waitress came by to take their orders. After she left, Jamal leaned forward. My mom says we need to document everything. Build a case. Perfect, Lily nodded. Marcus is already good at that sneaky camera stuff, and I can get other kids to talk. A lot of people are sick of Trent and his friends. They're just scared to say anything. Like Rebecca, Marcus added. She told me they bullied her brother last year until he transferred schools. See? Lily grabbed another fry. We just need to show people they're not alone. That someone's finally standing up to these jerks. Their food arrived, burgers and shakes, and they spent the next hour planning. Marcus would keep his phone ready to record any confrontations. Lily would work on getting other students to speak up about past bullying. And Jamal would continue practicing restraint, no matter how much they provoked him. But if they attack you again, Lily said firmly, defend yourself. We'll make sure everyone sees exactly what happened. For the first time in days, Jamal felt hope replacing the knot of anxiety in his stomach. He wasn't alone anymore. Maybe that would be enough to weather whatever Trent and his friends were planning. The familiar scent of clean mats and fresh air greeted Jamal as he pushed open the door to Coach Morales' dojo. Late afternoon sunlight streamed through the high windows, casting long shadows across the training space. The place felt like a sanctuary after the tension at school. Coach Morales stood in the center of the mat, his weathered face breaking into a warm smile. Jamal, come, come, he gestured to the changing room. Get your GI on. Minutes later, Jamal emerged in his black belt uniform, bowing before stepping onto the mat. Coach Morales studied him with knowing eyes. Your mother called me, the coach said quietly. She's worried. Jamal's shoulders tensed. It's nothing, Coach. Just some trouble at school. Coach Morales circled him slowly. Show me your guard position. They began with basic movements, Coach Morales calling out positions while Jamal flowed through them. The familiar routine helped ease some of the tension from Jamal's body. Your technique is perfect, Coach observed, but your spirit is troubled. Tell me what happened. As they continued training, Jamal explained everything. The bullying, the viral video, the locker room incident, and now the rumors painting him as violent. Coach Morales listened without interrupting, occasionally adjusting Jamal's form or demonstrating a movement. The hardest battles, Coach said finally, are not the physical ones. He motioned for Jamal to sit. When I first came to this country from Brazil, I opened a small dojo in a wealthy neighborhood. The other business owners, he shook his head. They did not want me there. Jamal watched his mentor's face carefully. In 6 years of training, Coach Morales had rarely spoken about his past. They called the police for every small thing, claimed my students were dangerous, said I was bringing the wrong element to their street. Coach's voice remained steady, but Jamal could see old pain in his eyes. They wanted me to fight back, to prove their lies about me. What did you do? Jamal asked softly. I stayed calm, kept teaching, built relationships with the community. Coach demonstrated a gentle wrist lock. When they pushed, I redirected, just like in Jiu-Jitsu. Their energy became my strength. They practiced the movement together, Coach guiding Jamal's hands through the proper form. "But what if staying calm isn't enough?" Jamal asked, thinking of Trent and his friends. "What if they keep coming after me?" "You defended yourself well in that locker room," Coach said. "Used only the force needed, nothing more. That shows wisdom." He released the hold and faced Jamal directly. "But now they will try to provoke you into making a mistake. They want you to lose control." Jamal nodded slowly. "My mom says the same thing, that they're trying to trap me." "Your mother is a wise woman." Coach moved to demonstrate another technique. "In Jiu-Jitsu, we learn to stay centered when others try to unbalance us. The same principle applies here." They worked through several more drills, the physical activity helping Jamal process his thoughts. Finally, Coach called for a break, and they sat at the edge of the mat. "When those business owners tried to drive me away," Coach continued, "I had a choice. I could fight and prove their lies true in everyone's eyes, or I could show them their fear was meaningless." He smiled. "Now, 20 years later, their children train in my dojo. Sometimes your strength is knowing when not to fight." The words settled deep in Jamal's chest, mixing with his mother's warnings and his new friend's support. He understood now. His real power wasn't in his ability to defend himself, but in his choice of when and how to use that ability. The morning sun barely warmed Jefferson High's brick walls as students gathered in tight clusters, phones out, sharing the latest gossip. Lily pressed through the crowd toward Marcus and Jamal, who stood near the front steps. "Did you guys hear?" she asked, breathless. "Trent's dad came to school yesterday afternoon. He was yelling so loud, you could hear him through the principal's door." Marcus glanced around before lowering his voice. "My sister works in the office. She said Mr. Walker threatened to sue the school if they don't handle the violent element in the student body." Jamal's stomach tightened, but he kept his face neutral. "They're trying to set me up." "That's not all," Lily continued. "He specifically said the school would be liable when you inevitably lash out." She made air quotes with her fingers, like they're expecting it to happen. The first bell rang, and students began filing inside. As they walked to class, Jamal noticed how other kids moved away from him in the hallway, like he was dangerous. The whispers followed him everywhere. "My dad says he's got a record. I heard he attacked 3 guys at his old school. No wonder he knows how to fight." In first period, Jamal sat at his usual desk near the window. Kyle Sanders slouched in 2 rows over, smirking as he texted under his desk. Every few minutes, he'd glance at Jamal and snicker. The morning dragged on. Between classes, Jamal caught fragments of conversations that made his skin crawl. "Mr. Walker's on the school board. His company donates like $50,000 a year. The principal can't risk making him mad." At lunch, Marcus managed to record a conversation between some basketball players at the next table. He played it back quietly for Jamal and Lily in their corner of the cafeteria. "Trent's dad's got it handled," one voice said. "Principal Morris is scared of losing his job." "Yeah, and Coach Thompson's not going to bench his star players before championships. That new kid's done for. Just a matter of time." Jamal pushed his lunch away, appetite gone. He thought about what Coach Morales had said about staying centered, but the weight of everything pressed down on him. After school, Trent's silver BMW pulled into Kyle's driveway. Kyle's parents were away at their lake house for the weekend, leaving the garage as the perfect planning space. Trent, Kyle, and 3 other basketball players gathered around Kyle's ping-pong table, now covered with notebook paper and phone screenshots. "All right," Trent said, pacing like a general addressing his troops. "The championship game's in 2 weeks. That's our chance." He pulled up a diagram of the gym on his phone. "During halftime, we'll get him under the bleachers. Kyle's already spread the word that he's violent. Everyone's expecting him to snap." Kyle grinned, proud of his handiwork. The whole school's scared of him now. Even some teachers are watching him weird. Perfect. Trent grabbed a basketball from the corner. We need to make it look good. The cameras need to catch him attacking us, not the other way around. They spent the next hour practicing different scenarios. Kyle would bump Jamal's shoulder hard, then act shocked when Jamal turned around. Another player would accidentally spill a drink on him, then film his reaction. They rehearsed their lines carefully. Watch where you're going, man. Why you getting so aggressive? See? He's dangerous. Trent supervised each practice run, fine-tuning their performance. Remember, he instructed, we need witnesses. Get your phones ready, but keep them hidden until he moves first. What if he doesn't fight back? One player asked. Like in the hallways? Trent's face darkened. Oh, he will. My dad's making sure he's got nowhere to run. No school wants a kid with a violence record. He demonstrated a subtle pushing motion. We just need to push the right buttons. Kyle pulled up the viral video from Jamal's first day. Look how he just took it when we knocked him down. But everyone saw what he did in the locker room. He's got skills. He'll use them if we corner him right. They practiced their positions, marking spots on the garage floor with tape. Each player knew their role. Who would block the exits? Who would film? Who would make the first move? The best part? Trent said, his voice cold with satisfaction. By the time anyone figures out what really happened, it'll be too late. His word against ours, and my dad's already got the principal ready to act. The garage echoed with their laughter as they packed up their plans. None of them noticed the small red light blinking in the garage window. Marcus's phone, recording everything from the bushes outside. The Jefferson High Gymnasium hummed with pre-game energy. Students packed the bleachers in waves of blue and gold, their faces painted with school colors. Banners celebrating the basketball team's previous victories hung from the rafters, casting long shadows across the polished floor. Jamal stood in the parking lot with his mother, the afternoon sun warm on their faces. Simone straightened his collar, her hands lingering on his shoulders. Remember what we talked about, she said softly. Keep your head up, but stay cool, no matter what they do. I know, Mom. Jamal's voice was steady, but his hands fidgeted with the zipper of his jacket. Marcus showed me the video from Kyle's garage. They're planning something. Simone's eyes narrowed. Those boys think they can get away with anything because of their parents' money. She squeezed his arm. But you're stronger than they know. Not just here. She touched his bicep, then his chest. But here, where it counts. Inside the gym, the crowd's roar grew louder as the visiting team arrived. Jamal found Marcus and Lily near the concession stand, both wearing concerned expressions. They've been watching the door, Marcus whispered, nodding toward Trent and Kyle, who lounged against the wall near the locker rooms. Like they're waiting for you. Lily pulled out her phone. We've got people ready to record if anything happens. Rebecca's up in the top bleachers with a perfect view. The pre-game warm-up started, filling the gym with the rhythmic sound of bouncing basketballs. Jamal sat with his mother in the middle section, trying to focus on the game. But he couldn't ignore the way Trent's teammates kept glancing his way, smirking and whispering. Principal Morris appeared at halftime, shaking hands with parents and posing for photos with Trent's father. Mr. Walker's expensive suit and confident smile screamed power and influence. When his eyes met Jamal's, his smile turned cold. That man gives me the creeps, Simone muttered. The halftime show began, cheerleaders spinning to upbeat music, the mascot throwing T-shirts into the crowd. In the chaos, Jamal's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Under the bleachers, now. Or your friend Marcus might have an accident in the parking lot after the game. Another buzz. We know he's been spying. Better hurry. Jamal's heart raced as he showed the messages to his mother. Simone's face tightened with anger and fear. They're not even trying to hide it anymore, she said, gripping his hand. "We should leave." But Jamal saw Marcus across the gym, watching him with worried eyes. His friend had risked everything to help him, recording evidence, standing up against the popular crowd. He couldn't leave him exposed to their threats. His phone buzzed again. Clock's ticking. Come alone or Marcus pays. The cheerleaders finished their routine to thunderous applause. Through the sea of moving bodies, Jamal spotted Kyle and two other players slipping behind the bleachers. Trent stood by the water fountain, pretending to check his phone while watching the crowd. "Mom," Jamal said quietly, "I have to go." "Jamal, no." "They'll hurt Marcus if I don't." He stood up slowly. "But I won't fight. I promise." Simone grabbed his wrist, her eyes fierce. "They want you to react. They've got this all planned out." "I know." Jamal managed a small smile. "That's why I won't give them what they want." He made his way down the bleacher steps, every movement feeling like slow motion. The crowd's excitement faded to a dull roar in his ears. As he approached the dark space under the bleachers, he saw phones already out, waiting to capture whatever happened next. His own phone buzzed one final time. Smart choice. "Now let's see how tough you really are." The space under the bleachers was dim and cramped, metal supports creating a maze of shadows. Jamal's footsteps echoed on the concrete as he moved deeper into the darkness. The sounds of the crowd above became muffled, like distant thunder. His heart stopped when he saw Marcus. His friend sat slumped against a support beam, hands bound behind his back with silver duct tape, another strip across his mouth. Marcus's eyes were wide with fear and shame. "Welcome to the party," Trent's voice came from behind him. Jamal turned to see the basketball captain blocking the exit, Kyle and Brent emerging from the shadows to flank him. "Guess your little spy won't be recording anything else." Jamal's muscles tensed, but he kept his voice calm. "Let him go. This is between us." "Oh, now he wants to talk tough," Kyle sneered, pulling out his phone. The camera light clicked on, illuminating the scene in harsh white. "Show everyone what you really are." Brent cracked his knuckles, moving to Jamal's left. "No more sneaky martial arts moves. Just you and us." What they didn't see was Lily, crouched in a maintenance alcove behind some equipment. Her phone was already streaming live to social media, capturing everything. "I'm not going to fight you," Jamal said, raising his hands. "Just untie Marcus." Trent laughed, the sound echoing off the concrete. "You don't get it. You're not leaving until we get what we want." He stepped closer, towering over Jamal. "Either you throw the first punch, or we make you." Kyle circled behind Jamal, still filming. "Maybe we should help Marcus breathe a little less. See how long your control lasts then." Something shifted in Jamal's eyes. Not anger, but focus. The calm certainty his jiu-jitsu training had drilled into him over years of practice. When Brent lunged forward with a wild punch, Jamal moved like water. He stepped inside Brent's reach, redirecting the punch past his shoulder. In one fluid motion, he trapped Brent's arm and swept his legs, sending the larger boy crashing to the ground. Before Brent could recover, Jamal had him in a controlled hold, arm locked, but not painfully. "Stay down," Jamal said quietly. "I don't want to hurt you." Kyle's phone clattered to the ground as he rushed forward, but his football tackle met empty air as Jamal released Brent and pivoted. Kyle's momentum carried him straight into a support beam with a hollow clang. Trent's face contorted with rage. "You're dead!" He charged like a bull, both fists swinging. Jamal's training took over. He sprawled backward, catching Trent's wild rush with a textbook hip throw. The basketball captain flipped through the air, landing hard on his back. Before he could rise, Jamal had him in a careful mount position, controlling but not striking. "It's over," Jamal said firmly. "I'm going to let you up. Then we're all walking out of here." In her hiding spot, Lily's hands trembled as she kept filming. The live stream counter showed thousands of viewers already, comments flooding in faster than she could read them. Brent staggered to his feet, holding his shoulder. Kyle sat dazed against the beam. But Trent wasn't finished. The moment Jamal released him, he scrambled up and pulled something from his jacket. A small knife glinting in the phone lights. "Think you're better than us?" Trent snarled, slashing wildly. "Let's see your kung fu handle this." Jamal's eyes narrowed. When the knife came at his face, he didn't back away. Instead, he stepped in close, trapping Trent's knife arm in a precise wrist lock. With careful pressure, he forced Trent's fingers open. The knife clattered to the ground. "It's jujitsu," Jamal said calmly, maintaining the hold as Trent grimaced in pain. "And I trained for weapons defense, too." The crowd noise above suddenly seemed louder. Footsteps pounded on the bleachers. Adult voices called out, getting closer. "Security's coming," Kyle shouted, scrambling to his feet. "We gotta go." Jamal released Trent, who stumbled backward, clutching his wrist. The three bullies fled toward the far exit, leaving their phones and the knife behind. Moving quickly, Jamal untied Marcus. His friend rubbed his wrists, tears in his eyes. "I'm so sorry," Marcus whispered. "They jumped me in the hallway. I tried to—" "It's okay." Jamal helped him up. "You're not hurt?" "No, just scared. And mad at myself for falling for it." Lily emerged from her hiding spot, phone still recording. "Don't be. Look." She showed them the stream. Over 10,000 viewers now. The comments full of outrage and support. Everyone saw what really happened. They can't lie their way out this time. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness. Security guards and teachers appeared at both ends of the bleachers, followed by Principal Morris and, Jamal's heart lifted, his mother. Simone rushed forward and pulled him into a fierce hug. "Are you okay?" "I called security the moment you left." She held him at arm's length, checking for injuries. "Did they hurt you?" "I'm fine, Mom." Jamal managed a small smile. "They're the ones who need ice packs." "And the whole school needs to see this," Lily added, holding up her phone. "The whole internet already is." The police cruiser's lights flashed red and blue against the gym's brick walls. Two officers led Trent, Kyle, and Brent toward separate cars, while Detective Martinez interviewed Jamal and Marcus near the bleachers. Lily stood nearby, her phone still recording everything. "And you're saying they lured you here by threatening your friend?" Martinez asked, jotting notes in her pad. "Yes, ma'am." Jamal pointed to the duct tape and knife that evidence techs were photographing. "They had Marcus tied up when I arrived. Then Trent pulled the knife." Simone's hand tightened on Jamal's shoulder. "My son defended himself using his martial arts training. Nothing more." "The video confirms that." Martinez nodded toward Lily. "Smart thinking with the live stream, young lady. Makes our job much easier." Principal Morris hovered at the edge of the group, his face ashen. "Perhaps we should discuss this in my office. Perhaps you should explain why these boys weren't suspended after the locker room incident," Simone cut in, her voice sharp. "Or why you ignored my calls about the harassment." Before Morris could respond, an expensive-looking SUV screeched into the parking lot. A tall man in a business suit stormed out. Trent's father, Richard Walker. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded, marching toward them. "Why are you arresting my son?" "Mr. Walker," Martinez stepped forward. "Your son and his friends assaulted two students, used racial slurs, and brandished a weapon. It's all on video." "Video can be manipulated," Walker sneered. "My son is the victim here. That boy attacked him. I want him arrested." Lily held up her phone. "It was live-streamed, Mr. Walker. Over 50,000 people watched it happen in real time, including the part where Trent pulled a knife." Walker's face reddened. "I'll sue. I'll have everyone's jobs for this. Morris, call the school board right now. I think the school board will be very interested in this footage, Simone said calmly, along with the previous video of your son assaulting Jamal, and the racist messages, and the principal's failure to act. More vehicles were arriving. News vans with satellite dishes, parents who'd seen the stream, community members drawn by the commotion. A reporter thrust a microphone toward Principal Morris. Sir, can you comment on allegations that the school ignored repeated incidents of racial harassment? Morris backed away, tugging at his collar. No comment at this time. We take all student safety concerns very seriously. Then why didn't you investigate when these boys attacked Jamal in the locker room? Another reporter called out. Or when they vandalized his locker with slurs, shouted someone in the growing crowd. Walker grabbed his phone, pacing and shouting at his lawyer. The other boys' parents arrived, creating more chaos as they argued with police and demanded to see their sons. Detective Martinez turned to Jamal. We'll need you to come down to the station to make a formal statement. But from what I've seen, this was clearly self-defense. Thank you, Jamal said quietly. He looked at Marcus. You okay to give a statement too? Marcus nodded, still shaken but standing straighter. They need to face consequences this time. No more covering it up. Lily was scanning the stream comments on her phone. It's everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. People are sharing clips and tagging civil rights groups. Justice for Jamal is trending. Simone squeezed Jamal's hand. Let's go home, baby. It's been a long night. As they walked to their car, community members called out support. Several students who'd stayed silent before now approached to apologize. Jamal just nodded, too drained to say much. At home later that night, Jamal and Simone sat on the couch, watching news coverage. His phone buzzed constantly with messages of support from around the country. The video had millions of views across platforms. Look at this, Simone said, showing him a statement from the NAACP calling for an investigation into Jefferson High's handling of racial harassment. Other civil rights organizations were weighing in. Former students shared similar stories of abuse covered up by the administration. I never wanted all this attention, Jamal sighed. I just wanted to be treated like everyone else. I know, baby. Simone hugged him close. But sometimes standing up for yourself means standing up for others too. You showed amazing control tonight. Used your training exactly the way it's meant to be used. Jamal watched clips of himself on the news, staying calm, using precise technique to neutralize attacks without causing serious harm. No wild punches or kicks, no loss of control, even when faced with a knife. Coach Morales would be proud, he said with a small smile. His phone lit up with a text from Lily. CNN wants to interview you tomorrow. Ready to tell your story? Jamal looked at his mother. She nodded encouragingly. Ready, he typed back. Time for everyone to hear the truth. Monday morning brought a sea of protest signs and chanting voices outside Jefferson High. The school's brick facade disappeared behind a wall of demonstrators stretching across the front lawn. News vans lined both sides of the street, their satellite dishes reaching toward the cloudy sky. No justice, no peace. The crowd's rhythmic chant echoed off nearby buildings. Reverend Jackson, a respected local pastor, stood at the center of the gathering with a megaphone. For too long, this school has turned a blind eye to racism. For too long, administrators have protected bullies while punishing victims. Today, we demand change. Jamal watched from his mother's car, parked across the street. Camera crews swarmed around community leaders giving interviews. Students filtered through the crowd, many wearing homemade shirts with "Font your Justice for Jamal" printed on them. You don't have to go in today, Simone said softly. No one would blame you for staying home. Jamal shook his head. I can't hide." That's what they want. As they approached the school entrance, reporters rushed forward with microphones and cameras. "Jamal, how do you respond to claims that you provoked the attack? Mrs. Price, will you be filing a lawsuit against the school? What message do you have for other students facing racial harassment?" Detective Martinez and 2 officers cleared a path. "Back up, please. Let them through." Inside, the halls were eerily quiet. Most students had stayed home. Those present whispered and stared as Jamal passed. Near his locker, he found Marcus and Lily waiting. "You okay?" Lily asked, hugging him. The video hit 5 million views overnight. "I'm good," Jamal said. "Thanks for being there. Both of you." Marcus smiled. Someone had to expose the truth. The morning announcements crackled over the intercom. Instead of Principal Morris's voice, they heard Mrs. Chen, the assistant principal. "Due to today's protests, all classes will meet in alternate locations away from external windows. Security personnel are stationed throughout the building. Please report any harassment immediately." Jamal's phone buzzed with a news alert. He opened it to find Richard Walker, Trent's father, giving a press conference outside his law office. "My son made mistakes, but he's not a racist," Walker insisted, his face red. "This has been blown completely out of proportion by social media activists pushing an agenda. We're considering legal action against—" Lily snatched the phone away. "Nope, you don't need to watch that garbage." Throughout the day, more students approached Jamal to apologize for staying silent before. Rebecca, a quiet girl from his English class, handed him a card signed by dozens of classmates. "We should have spoken up sooner," she said. "I'm sorry we let fear keep us quiet." During lunch, Jamal sat with a large group for the first time since arriving at Jefferson. The cafeteria buzzed with discussions about racism, privilege, and the need for change. "Did you see the alumni letter?" a senior named Josh asked. "Over 500 graduates signed it demanding Morris resign." "My parents went here in the 90s, added Maria, a sophomore. "They said the same stuff happened back then." The school always protected the rich white kids. Outside, the protests grew larger. Local news reported that civil rights leaders from neighboring cities had joined the demonstration. Social media feeds filled with stories from former students sharing their own experiences of harassment at Jefferson. After school, Simone picked Jamal up early to avoid the media frenzy. As they drove home, his phone lit up with messages from Marcus. "Emergency school board meeting called for 7 p.m. They're going to address everything." They watched the meeting's live stream from their living room. The small boardroom was packed with angry parents, community leaders, and media. Public comments lasted for hours as speaker after speaker demanded action. "My daughter faced the same harassment last year," one mother testified. "Principal Morris told us to just ignore it." "I graduated in 2015, a young man said. "I watched the basketball team bully Latino students while teachers looked away." Nothing has changed. Richard Walker tried to speak, but was drowned out by boos. Other wealthy parents defended the school, claiming the incident was isolated. Finally, at 9:45 p.m., the board chair called for order. After reviewing the evidence, including multiple videos and student statements, the board has reached several immediate decisions, she announced. First, Principal Morris is suspended pending a full investigation of his handling of racial harassment complaints. The room erupted in cheers. Second, we are forming a task force to examine systemic racism within our schools, led by community members and civil rights experts. Third, we are implementing mandatory bias training for all staff and updating our disciplinary policies. Jamal let out a long breath. Simone hugged him tight, tears in her eyes. His phone buzzed with a text from Coach Morales. "You fought the hardest battle, staying true to your principles, even when facing hatred. That's what real strength looks like. The board chair's voice cut through the noise. This is just the beginning of necessary changes at Jefferson High. We have failed our students of color. That ends now. As the meeting concluded, Jamal's social media filled with celebration messages. But he felt more tired than triumphant. Change wouldn't happen overnight. The real work was just starting. You helped make this happen, Simone said softly, by refusing to be a victim, by defending yourself with dignity. Jamal nodded, watching as the board members filed out past protesters still chanting outside. The truth had finally come to light. Now it was time to make sure it stayed there. The school board meeting room was packed beyond capacity on Tuesday night. People lined the walls, spilled into the hallway, and crowded around live-stream phones. Camera crews jostled for position as Board President Helen Martinez called the emergency session to order. Tonight, we will hear testimony regarding the pattern of harassment at Jefferson High, Martinez announced, her voice firm. Each speaker has 3 minutes. Marcus was first to approach the podium, hands shaking slightly as he gripped his notes. I filmed the first video of Jamal defending himself in the locker room, he said. But that wasn't the first time I saw Trent and his friends attack someone. Last year, they cornered my cousin Miguel after he made the basketball team. They said Mexican kids didn't belong on their court. Miguel transferred schools the next day. More students came forward. A senior named David described being slammed into lockers as a freshman. Jenny Thompson, class of 2019, testified about the team harassing her younger brother until he quit school. Each story revealed the same pattern, the basketball players targeting minorities while adults looked away. Jamal sat between his mother and Coach Morales, watching Principal Morris shift uncomfortably in his seat. The principal's usual confident smile had vanished. Richard Walker, Trent's father, interrupted several speakers with objections. This is a witch hunt. You can't blame my son for every problem this school has ever had. Mr. Walker, you are out of order, Martinez warned. Please remain silent during testimony. A retired teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, approached the microphone slowly using a cane. I taught at Jefferson for 30 years before retiring last spring. Every time I reported the basketball team's behavior, Principal Morris said I was overreacting. He told me those boys came from good families, and we shouldn't damage their college prospects. Simone squeezed Jamal's hand as more alumni described similar experiences. Decades of buried truth were finally coming to light. Kyle's mother stood up suddenly. My son made terrible choices, but he was following Trent's lead. Kyle wants to apologize and tell the truth about what really happened. The room went silent as Kyle walked to the podium, eyes downcast. Trent ordered us to corner Jamal that day, he said quietly. He said we had to put him in his place, before other black kids thought they could join the team. When Jamal defended himself, Trent came up with the plan to frame him at the game. Kyle's voice cracked. I'm sorry. I was a coward. Brent's parents weren't present, but their lawyer read a statement expressing deep remorse for their son's actions. Only the Walkers remained defiant. This is a farce, Richard Walker shouted, standing. Where's the evidence of systemic racism? One incident doesn't. Mr. Walker, Martinez cut in sharply. The video evidence is clear. Your son and his friends attempted to assault another student while using racial slurs. This was premeditated and caught on camera. The real question, board member Dr. Thompson added, is why it took public outrage for this pattern of abuse to be addressed. Principal Morris stared at his hands as more community members testified about his failure to protect students. After 3 hours of testimony, the board called a brief recess to deliberate. Jamal stayed quiet during the break, processing everything he'd heard. His experience wasn't isolated. It was part of a much bigger problem that had festered for years. When the board returned, Martinez's expression was grave but determined. Based on the overwhelming evidence presented tonight, the board has reached several decisions, she announced. First, Trent Walker, Kyle Sanders, and Brent Nichols are hereby expelled from Jefferson High School, effective immediately. Their actions violated multiple zero-tolerance policies regarding racial harassment and physical assault. A mix of cheers and gasps filled the room. Richard Walker stormed out, slamming the door. Second, we have accepted Principal Morris's resignation. Martinez paused as Morris nodded stiffly. Doctor, Chen will serve as interim principal while we conduct a national search for new leadership. Simone wrapped her arm around Jamal's shoulders, tears streaming down her face. Coach Morales patted his back gently. Finally, we are implementing a comprehensive diversity and inclusion initiative, including mandatory staff training, curriculum updates, and a new student-led advisory council on racial equity. The council's first task will be helping us revise our harassment reporting procedures. Martinez looked directly at Jamal. To Mr. Price and other students who have faced discrimination at Jefferson, we failed you. That ends now. This board is committed to creating real change, not just making empty promises. The meeting concluded with the board voting unanimously to approve all measures. As people began filing out, several students asked Jamal to join the new advisory council. He agreed, knowing the real work of transformation was just beginning. Outside, reporters swarmed for comments, but Detective Martinez and her officers maintained a protective barrier. Simone hugged Jamal tightly, still crying tears of relief. "You stood your ground with dignity," she whispered. "I'm so proud of you." The Jefferson Sports Center buzzed with excitement on a bright Saturday morning. Hundreds of spectators filled the bleachers for the citywide Youth Martial Arts Championship. Colorful banners representing different dojos hung from the ceiling, and the air smelled of fresh popcorn and anticipation. Jamal adjusted his black belt in the warm-up area as Coach Morales offered final guidance. "Remember what we practiced," the coach said quietly. "Stay centered. Your technique is solid." "Thanks, Coach." Jamal glanced at the growing crowd. His mother sat in the front row, wearing a T-shirt with his name on it. Next to her, Marcus and Lily held up a hand-painted sign. "Team Jamal. Strength through peace." Several Jefferson High students filled the nearby seats, including members of the new Student Equity Council. Dr. Chen, the interim principal, had encouraged the whole school to attend. She stood near the entrance, greeting families and handling press inquiries with practiced ease. Under her leadership, Jefferson High had already begun to change. New anti-harassment policies were in place, and student-led diversity initiatives were transforming the school culture. The announcer's voice boomed through the speakers. Next up in the advanced division, representing Morales Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Academy, Jamal Price. Cheers erupted from the Jefferson section as Jamal stepped onto the mat. His opponent, a skilled competitor from across town, bowed respectfully. They touched hands and began. The match showcased everything Coach Morales had taught him about control and precision. Jamal moved with fluid grace, using his opponent's energy against them. When his challenger attempted an aggressive takedown, Jamal redirected the force and smoothly transitioned to secure a winning submission. The referee raised Jamal's hand as the crowd erupted. He had won his division. Simone wiped tears from her eyes as she applauded. Coach Morales beamed with quiet pride. During the awards ceremony, the tournament director invited Jamal to say a few words. He approached the microphone, metal gleaming around his neck. "First, I want to thank my mother," Jamal began, his voice steady and clear. "She taught me that true strength comes from standing up for what's right, even when it's hard." Simone smiled through fresh tears. I want to thank Coach Morales, who showed me that martial arts isn't about hurting people. It's about self-discipline and using your skills responsibly. The coach nodded solemnly. To my friends, Marcus and Lily, thank you for having the courage to expose truth when others looked away. And to everyone at Jefferson High who's working to create positive change, this victory belongs to all of us. Jamal paused, looking out at the diverse crowd. When I faced bullying and racism, I could have given in to anger. But Coach taught me that the strongest response isn't always the most aggressive one. Sometimes strength means staying calm in the face of hatred. Sometimes it means defending yourself while still showing respect for human dignity. The room was silent, hanging on his words. But strength also means speaking up against injustice. It means not staying quiet when you see others being hurt. Change happens when people stand together and say, "This isn't right." He touched the medal around his neck. This championship means a lot to me. But I'm even prouder of how our school is transforming. The new posters in our halls don't just talk about diversity, they celebrate it. Students who used to stay silent are finding their voices. We're building something better, together. Applause thundered through the sports center as Jamal stepped back. His mother rushed forward to embrace him, followed by Coach Morales and his friends. Reporters raised cameras to capture the moment, but Jamal barely noticed them. He was too busy being grateful for how far they'd come. The next Monday at Jefferson High, Jamal walked through halls that felt different than they had just months ago. His championship medal photo hung in the trophy case alongside new anti-bullying pledges signed by students. Posters announced upcoming cultural celebrations and equity council meetings. But the real change was in the atmosphere. Students from all backgrounds mixed freely at lunch tables. Freshmen no longer hugged the walls in fear. And when Jamal passed his classmates, their greetings were genuine, not born of fear or fame, but of respect for the quiet strength he'd shown them all. He paused at his locker, now decorated with positive messages from the student council. The space where racist graffiti had once been scrawled now held a simple quote: "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." Dr. Chen stopped to congratulate him on the championship. "You've helped create lasting change here, Jamal," she said warmly. "Not just through what happened, but through how you handled it. You showed everyone a better way forward." Jamal smiled, remembering Coach Morales' words about knowing when to fight and when to stand firm. As he headed to class, surrounded by friends both old and new, he felt at peace. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had led exactly where it needed to go. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please like the video and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.